Marie. I'm so sorry for getting on late. I had initially planned to come online at 9:30 p.m. Eastern tonight, and it is now 11:13 p.m. So I am nearly 2 hours behind. I have a good reason for being late. My sister well, she had some big news tonight. I realize that not everyone knows about it yet. So I realize we can't talk about it yet. But one of my sisters had some big news tonight, and so I needed to celebrate with her. And so it was exciting, good, happy things. But it pushed me back 2 hours. So all that to say, you know, I realized tonight's conversation in terms of the title, how to really examine truth and what is the difference between truth and personal experience. This conversation came up while I was at dinner with one of my sisters and my partner, and we were talking about the difference between values and principles. And I've been leaning into the concept of principles a lot over the last couple of weeks because the way that I've been thinking about principles has been under the guise of one definition. But after hearing our conversation tonight, I realized how much all of us are approaching the world with completely different frames around certain words and what each word means. And so when I'm using the word truth or I'm using the word principle or values, someone else is not just having their own definition, but their definition of that word is thus interpreting what I'm saying through their lens. And then we wonder why communication is so hard, or how is it that we could end up on just completely different sides of the playing field when you and I fundamentally have a different definition. I host a number of events, whether it's knowing dinner in a city or town that I'm speaking at or attending an event in. And I also host knowing retreats. And so I hosted one at the beginning of this month, but I also, the one particularly that comes to mind is one that I hosted in Las Vegas back in, I guess it was April of 2025. And there were couples who were there, and I think of the Knowing Retreat as the boot camp of the soul. This is the time when we dig deep and we really press into our past, understanding how the past shows up in the present. We lean into the unprocessed experiences that hold power over us in a very subconscious way. It's not like we're engaging in life and knowing that all of this is happening beneath the surface, but it's like, imagine that tip of the iceberg. Underneath the water, there's this massive mound, and that massive mound is actually informing so much of us, where our conscious mind, we only really have access to, I think it's 5%, scientists say. And so a big part of knowing and doing this work is to really uncover what else is really going on beneath the surface, even though we'll never access 100% of it. But how can we access more? And how can we make sure that our subconscious isn't the one in the driver's seat, but we truly are, as we were uniquely created to be in the first place? And by way of us putting ourselves back in the driver's seat, there's something about almost like a transition of power that comes from that. No longer are the wounded parts of us, the scared parts of us, the controlling parts of us driving, but it's us in our true state as we were intended to be. And so as we were hosting this retreat in Vegas last year, I asked the group to define love. What does love mean for them? And what was so interesting was that every single person had a pretty different definition from the other. And what that also means is that within the confines of a marriage, the two individuals that encompass the marriage saying, I love you, both of them held very different definitions. So one saying I love you meant something completely different than what was received from the other person. And then also when the other person says I love you, it's received, and also it's just like ships in the night. And so when it comes to defining terms, when it comes to the analyzation of truth and what does that actually mean, I really valued the conversation we had over dinner tonight, because it's so easy to talk about values, principles, truth, where tonight it was like, okay, well, let's define terms. What do I mean when I say this, and what do you mean when you say that? That's part of the reason why I really love looking at the root languages and the root of the word. So when I was diving into intuition, I'm like, okay, what does that really mean? And I learned that the Latin root of intuition is intuere, which means to be taught from within. All of a sudden, intuition means so much more to me than just a gut feeling. All of a sudden, it's like, no, there's so much happening inside of us that we're taught from and we learn from, and that's our inner compass and guiding navigational system in so many ways. And so, doing a similar pursuit of principles and values, and just really considering the difference between the two, especially truth, because I'm hearing more and more, and I'm sure you are too. If your algorithm is set at all like mine, I've been hearing more and more about how folks are saying my truth versus your truth. And the more that I'm hearing this, I feel like something feels off for me. And it feels actually quite dangerous to be saying my truth versus your truth, and two truths that are so opposing coexisting together, that are actually not just opposing, but actually in direct conflict in terms of someone's experience. Because at what point does the truth become subjective versus objective? And at what point does truth becomes your experience versus the objective reality of what is? We've been reading every single morning over the last, I guess, 22 days since it's January 22nd. We've been talking every morning through a lesson for the day from A Course in Miracles. And one of the things that has really been kind of drilled into us over the last couple of weeks has been how much the past colors the lens through which we see the world, how much we actually are not really truly seeing. And that is a fundamentally different place than when we sit in our on our high horse saying, well, this is the truth, this is my truth, because what it does is that it first it separates us. This is mine. And I heard that first from, I was actually reading the book Letting Go by David Hawkins, and he assigns numerical value, so like 100, 150, 200, 600, to different emotions. And the lower the numerical value, the lower the emotion. So shame is at level 50 and peace is at level 600. So obviously there's a lot of emotions in between those. And you can sense it, when somebody is hunched over and feeling bad about themselves. There's literally like a lower energy and a lower type of engagement with them when like it's just small and obsequious, and there's a weakness tied to it as well. But then somebody who's at level, I forget what numerical value is assigned to joy. Let's say 200. 200 is the level he gave for courage. Somebody with their shoulders rolled back and they're like, "Hey, good to see you." There's just a bigger, brighter energy. And so with the emotions rising up the numerical order and hierarchy, the energy changes with that too, and it's a little bit bolder and brighter, and it gets to the point of peace where, man, you're just like so good. And it's really interesting because when he was talking about anger and pride, which is below courage, there's a sense of mine around it. And he actually talks about that very specifically. Whereas if I say my opinion, all of a sudden you having a different opinion that's other than mine is an affront on mine. Versus this is a perspective or an opinion, and you have a perspective and an opinion. And then also so that's kind of like setting that aside, because that for me, man, I've gone back and like underlined it and reread it a couple of times because that was so important. My versus a or an. Because once I'm willing to let go of, and that's a book called Letting Go, once I can let go of whatever it is that I'm holding on to so tightly, that's my opinion or my preference or whatever it is, that it's fundamentally separating me from the other person. Because I'm saying, oh no, this is mine and I'm right. And so if you have a different opinion, now we're fundamentally at odds. Versus this is an opinion, what's yours? Or like what do you hold? And there's something about letting go of mine that allows for curiosity and allows for a coexistence alongside each other. My brother-in-law, um, For those of you who know me and have been tuning into the show, you know that my brother-in-law was just so treasured by our family. He came in and started dating my sister when I was 12. My youngest sister was 6. Like, he was our big brother. And he and my sister they met on Valentine's Day in high school, and got married and had a 3-week-old baby girl when he was killed by a drunk driver. And it just ripped us apart. It's just so incredibly devastating. And he used to tell my sister, he would be like, "We're on the same team. But if this is my perspective, this is my truth, and you're over there with your truth and we're at odds, how in the world can we be on the same team?" So, differentiating between this is the experience that I had, and then this is the experience you had, and now let's come together and sit on the same team. And I like to think of it this way. Each one of us, for every single experience in our lives that we've had that remains unprocessed, which means that effectively there's an emotion that we never moved through. We never really fully processed it. We never actually moved through the emotion to get to the other side of it. That unprocessed emotion and unprocessed experience forms in us like a brick. It's like it forms and solidifies and becomes a narrative that is very true for us about the world. And so eventually, enough of those experiences compile. And now I'm sitting behind a brick wall and I'm looking at the world through the lens of all these unprocessed experiences. And so what you say to me, I'm filtering through literally like the ears of someone who has all these wounded sources of truth, right? And I put truth in air quotes because that narrative is predicated in a wound or an unprocessed emotion that's stuck in me, that now you saying something actually triggers that. It's like flint and stone. So your words come at me and they pierce the brick. It's again like flint and stone. All of a sudden I'm activated. But is that really what you meant? Is that really what actually, really happened if we were gonna bring in a judge and jury? Or is that my interpretation because of my experience of all these years leading up to this moment? And so back to A Course in Miracles, so much of what we've been talking about over the last 22 days has been, man, acknowledging I am seeing things through the past. I am not seeing rightly, and just acknowledging that, because once we start allowing ourselves to recognize, I probably am not seeing clearly, what that does is that it's a release. It's like the thing that we were holding on to so tightly, which was our opinion or our truth. All of a sudden it's like, oh, well, let me be curious about this. I've used the analogy of like there's this biblical concept of taking thoughts captive. And I think of it in the lens of like taking the thought out of our mind and putting it in front of us and like putting it on the table and being like, like, what is this thought? What does it tell me about me? What does it tell me about my past experience? Where do I need to heal it? And so the difference between my truth versus my experience, and then even better, removing mine, and this is the experience I had. Now we can sit on the same bench and examine my brick wall. And then I can come around and sit behind your wall with you. And we can look at all the decades of bricks that have formed and look at it with so much curiosity and love because we're on the same team. It's not me versus you. So, with that, I just want to take a quick moment and jump over into the chat and say, hello, friends. I'm sorry for coming on here so late. Um, Adam, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Charles, Zia, thank you for joining. Roland, hello from Argentina. I need to make it to your beautiful country. I want to go to Mendoza. I've heard that the steak and wine there is superb. And I want to go see the penguins. Oh my gosh. Baby, good to see you. Brian, I'm glad to see you. Oh, thank you so much. You're wonderful. With subscribe, like, share, notify. Thank you. Mm, Daquan, Barnes, Harvey, This channel's not AI. I'm here now. Outlaw Angel, what is your channel about? We talk a lot about spiritual intelligence, intellectual intelligence, artificial intelligence, and emotional intelligence. It's really about how do we live holistically for ourselves, for our businesses, and for other people. So, yeah. That's what we talk about here on the channel. Hi Vance, good to see you. Your note made me laugh. SQ, I like waffle fries, especially from Chick-fil-A with their peppermint milkshake. It's incredible. Um, Leon, good to see you. SQ, this is AI. It's not. I'm here now. I am just going through the chat. All right. Vernon Hudson, good to see you. All right. Christopher Adams, good to see you. Oh, I love this. You said 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 18, St. Paul describes agape love. It's patient, kind, and holds no record of wrongdoing. Love abstains from prideful boasting or envy, amongst other things. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because really one of the things that has really stood out to me over the last year is like we either come from a place of fear or a place of love. It's usually one or the other. And like the root of pride so often is fear. And so to your point of like love abstains from prideful boasting or envy, among so many other things. I love that you pointed that out. And one thing that was interesting, I learned that there's 7 different forms of love in the Greek language. So to your point about when I asked the couples, like, how do you describe love? My gosh, there's actually 7 different words used for love, like agape love. Philia, I think philia is the word where Philadelphia brotherly love comes from. There's even a love that one of the words for love is actually like self-love. Like we're actually intended to have a care for ourselves, and that's a type of love. So I love that you brought that up. Vernon, just looking at your notes. Kyle, emotionally intelligent. Yes. Quentin or Quint, um, hello, spiritual sigh, Brian C. I'd rather walk alone in truth than stand surrounded by cowards who lie. Stay real. You saying that, Brian, reminds me of Theodore Roosevelt's quote. If you haven't yet, his speech, Citizens in the Republic, 1912, the entire thing, not just the man in the arena, but like the whole, at least the middle section surrounding the section of the man in the arena. My gosh, it's so, 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 so good. Christopher Adams, you said in better context of erotic love, the consummation of a man and woman reflects the Trinity of God and emulates his sacrifice on the cross. A husband loves his wife like Christ loves his church. I love that you brought up erotic love, because that is one of the Greek. I think it's actually, is it erotica? I think that's actually one of the 7 types of love. I love that. And it's interesting too, because I think that our prioritization of love so often reflects what's lacking in us. And so based on kind of what we identify as what we want is so often what we need and what's lacking. So I love that you brought that up. Less more. Mm. Hmm. You said we only borrow everything and we take nothing with us. We only exist in the moment. I'm reminded as you're saying that the power of now. So good. Um, John Lambert, good to see you. Qasim Aslam, so glad you're here. Poison Dart, Larry Eaton, thank you for joining. Leon, oh, thank you, my friend. I appreciate this. Outlaw, thank you. I appreciate that. Larry Eaton, I am not married. I don't have kids, but I do have a darling. Tavon, you said, I think love is simply the acceptance of what is in the present moment. Man, that is so beautifully stated. I think love is simply the acceptance of what is in the present moment. I think that, man, I think that we can't get to that point until we reconcile the past, because otherwise the past does color the present. And that doesn't mean that we're completely done with the past or completely healed, but it's like, am I actually free to be here? Am I free to be now? Or am I getting caught up with the past or even the future? So I love that. Love is simply the acceptance of what is in the now. Um, Chicago. I just saw your note. Um, Leon, that's the best way to put it, no doubt. Um, Outlaw. Mm, Self-love. Lendell Jr., I'm so glad to see you. Stevie Ray. Um, Stevie Ray, Acts 2, 20, 38. I actually don't know what that is. Can you drop it in the chat? Wear mask. What is your best wisdom? What is your best wisdom? Oh dear. I will think about that. Actually, if you want to, I have a link on, I think I put it in the description for some of these. I'm live on a couple different places, but if you fill this out with that question, I'm going to be mapping out shows over the next couple weeks with questions that you guys offer me, because I really want to be writing or talking in accordance with, yes, what's on my heart in the moment, but also some of the things that you guys put on here. So if you guys fill out that form, it'll tell me just questions that you guys want me to address, because I love that question. And frankly, I'd love to give it time before I just answer it off the cuff. Another thing too, uh, folks have been asking where I'm located. And because I host events around the country, but also, I went up to Canada and invited folks together for a lunch, and same with the UK. I'm planning to go there later this year, and I want to host a dinner there and maybe even a retreat. So if you guys fill out that form, let me know where you are in the world and if you want to do something virtually or in person, and then we can schedule something accordingly. Jason Bender, thank you. You know what? I think each one of us has revelations from God if we are not tapping into, if we're living awake, if we're living and kind of tapping into, it's like, I feel like every morning, each one of us has to intentionally go turn online, like flipping a switch, our emotional intelligence, like being wise and being wise with our emotions, being wise with our thoughts, being wise with our spirit, and listening. I actually created 21 days of prompts, and they're just a series of emails that I created over my birthday this summer, because my mornings are so, I use the word sacred lightly, and I usually only use it for times and spaces like this. So my process of vertical alignment in the morning is just so sacred to me. And I wrote out 21 days of just questions in that process. So if you want that, verticalalignment.com, just some of the things that I've learned along the way that have really changed my life. So if you want that, it's free. And if you just want 21 days, um, in your opinion, what religion is not the best, but something like you think can help us? I'm glad that you said is not the best, but something you think can help us. Oh gosh, I don't like saying a particular religion, because frankly, I think that the best way to encounter God is to seek him. There's a verse that says, "Seek me with your whole heart and you will be found by me." And I found that to be true when I've sought God, and not just sought him. There's a couple different ways of seeking him. I've found that there's a concept of like opening up my soul to him and pouring it out and saying, God, I am feeling this way. I'm either angry or I'm sad, I'm grieving, and like just like laying out my soul before him and just putting myself bare. That pouring out my soul is a way of seeking him. Listening is a way of seeking, rather than just constantly talking at him, and obeying. I have found so much of encountering the presence of God and relationship with God in those three ways. And I'll add in a fourth. The more that I actually cut off inputs that I feel like kind of cloud my vision of the like I talked about my time of in the morning, that's what I call vertical alignment. I call it sacred because there's something that almost feels holy about it. When my sister and her baby girl moved in with us and her husband had just been killed, there was something really holy around that degree of pain. And in those moments of brokenness, we have a choice to go and battle it out with God and contend with him, go and grieve and say, "What the heck is going on?" to run away and turn our back and harden our hearts. And so if in response to your question, what religion is maybe not the best, but something that can help us, I think it's relationship, not religion. And I say that like with so much trepidation because I know how things can get twisted, and my hope is that you can hear my heart here. When I've been most broken, I needed God for myself. I didn't need to access him in a building or access him through via some other holy person, but I actually needed to purify myself and make myself a being available for that connection point. When I think of aligning myself, it's bringing my behaviors, my thoughts, my beliefs, my decisions, everything, bringing it under the superordinate principle of the capital T truth, God himself. What does he say? And who do I feel called to be? I'm a very big player in the part of my story of my life because I did live so much in just like subservience to God and religion for so much of my life. And now it's like, oh, what are the desires of my heart? And the more I am aligning myself with God, I can trust that my desires will be purified and in alignment with his for me. There was this quote by a woman named Elizabeth Elliot, and she said, the whole concept and kind of allegory of a shepherd with sheep, and she's talking to us as the sheep, and she's like, little sheep, how much more does your shepherd want you to do his bidding than you do? So when I'm like, God, I want to do something great with my life. I want to do something great, you know. I think actually he wants me to do something great even more than I do if I'm doing it for the right reasons, right? And so I think that's what I would say in regards to that question is that for me it hasn't been religion. I've actually left buildings to go and seek and encounter God in my car because I felt him more there and I heard him more there. So I hope that made sense. Um, but yeah, y'all fill out the form if you would. I would love to hear from you and maybe even talk deeper about this. I'm going to go ahead and put that link once more in. I do need to go to bed. I'm flying tomorrow and I need to go pack and all of that. Um, but yeah, I would love, love, love to hear from you. And if we want to dig deeper into this question and conversation around religion or even just what you mentioned earlier about wisdom, I thought that that was a really, really apt question. So I would love to hear from you guys. Please feel free to fill that out. And hopefully I'll do like a little knowing dinner, knowing retreat tour, and we can all get together in person. So with that, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. It was so good to see you all. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of the questions, but I promise I will. I'm going to be, again, kind of working out themes and topics for the shows over the next couple of weeks based on what you all have put in the chat and then also what you all put in the form here. So with that, have a wonderful evening, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and we'll go through A Course in Miracles lesson 23. It'll be the 23rd of January. So with that, have a wonderful evening.